And welcome back to this Friday edition of The Source. It is one of my favorite points of Friday. Of course, the Neighborhood Love Tour is amazing. But now I get to be in here behind the stage door talking to my friend and co-host, Mr. Jeffery Page. Hey, Jeffery, how are you?
Hey, Tiffany, what's going on?
I'm breathing on schedule, a little tired, but it's all good. Ain't nobody tired like you, though, sir, because you have just returned from Japan.
I have just returned from Japan, and
My.
when I tell you whatever they call jet lagged, it's me right now. Whatever that is, it's definitely me. I don't know if it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. or 4 a.m. or 4 p. I just don't know.
My.
I am what you would call carried. My
Yes,
my
I
body
understand.
my body is on the other side of the world right now.
Well, we are glad that at least your mind is here. It looks like your body is here, but hopefully your mind is here on the East Coast with the rest of us. So in this hour, we're not going to add an additional guest because you've really had quite an adventure this summer. And I appreciate the fact that you were still able to teleport yourself via the internets to join us on stage door while you were literally a world away. But just give us a recap of the experience, especially the experience of coming back. There's new mask mandates that are being handed down here on the East Coast. I know in New York and Philadelphia, we're getting some new mask mandates. So COVID is still an issue. Cases are on the rise again. So let's just hear from you about this transition from Japan back home, and COVID ain't gone nowhere yet.
Well, Tiffany, you gonna have to help guide me through this journey. Because I definitely have a lot on my brain cells, so I might ramble this way or that. So I'm gonna need you to be like, "Come on, Jeffrey, bring it on back. Let me get started. Talk about this now. Talk about
Grab a hold of the end of the rope. I'll pull you in.
this."
Mm-hmm.
Let me first say that um, I felt so safe in Tokyo. I felt so safe. I felt well taken care of. I felt like, for what it's worth, I felt like the government was very on top of, what was happening. It wasn't this, inner fighting or whatever. And, you know, even down to the point of getting back into New York. Like when I landed into JFK, the first thing that I saw, Tiffany, I saw the really, really dirty carpets. I saw the really dirty carpets at JFK, and that really depressed me because
Mm.
I was thinking, this is my country, like, and this is what y'all got. Like, this is what y'all got. Like JFK, it was just so dirty.
Mm.
I don't know if I should be saying this on air, but I mean, like, at this point, I feel very passionate about it. I feel like we have a lot to do with
Mm.
with cleaning up our stuff, and especially if we're considering ourselves to be a world leader, in any kind of right of the imagination, like, and then Tiffany, when I tell you, I was literally not stopped at all at JFK. Like,
Really?
I was able to get off the plane, walk directly to customs. They looked at my passport, and then I walked directly out the door, got a cab, and came home. Didn't nobody ask me if I was if I was exposed to a virus or nothing. And and I do realize that they had temperature taking cameras, but man, I was just like how easy would it be,
That's
for
crazy.
me to bring something into the country, it would
Mm.
just be super easy. Like literally when I went to Tokyo, it was like 40 stations. Like after I got off the plane, first of all, the airport was impeccably clean. And then it was like 40 stations of where I had to check in and give my name and download this app and do this and take a temperature here and take a test here and yada yada yada. And and I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, Tiffany. You would
Mhm.
have to help me be the judge of that. But I think that I when I walked out, I was just thinking to myself, "Wow, this was a little bit too easy," and
Mm.
it's that's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really I haven't traveled since pre-pandemic. I mean, like pre-pandemic, like deep into 2019. So there was already, the checkpoints that were set up as a result of 9/11, but there wasn't anything that, like we're dealing with now. So I don't know. I'm listening to your story, and there's other people that I know who've traveled abroad, since borders have reopened. And it's a lot, but I guess you just got to think, like, the consequences of things not being a lot right now, like the precautions are just not worth it. But that's, part of the big discussion. Numbers are going back up because people are tired of masks. People are still in there. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. Some folks are still skeptical about the vaccine. And then, and you have a lot of people getting back out into the world, doing the things that we used to do, attending concerts, being in movie theaters or other enclosed spaces, going to parties that are indoors and very little circulation and hardly any masks. And the transmission rates are, going up. So it's like, what to do? And a lot of folks are thinking, there's unfortunate memes going around on the internet joking about, oh, you made plans for the fall. Like, folks are bracing for that word to come back down and say, hey, go back and stay in house now. You had your fun. Numbers are back up. People are getting sick and dying and going back in.
I don't know if it's required for the government to enforce a lockdown or anything, but I do think that there needs to be some sort of, I don't know, it has to be some sort of help, because we're not going to defeat this by the way we're going right now. We're just not, and it's a new world. The world of today is not the world of yesterday. Like,
Of 1918, the last time we had something like this, it's not
yeah,
the same. It's not the same space.
it's not the same space at all. And I think that we really have to start to be prepared of what that means. We're not in the same space, and if that means we have to wear a mask, look, I hate wearing masks just as much as anybody else, but at the very least, I want to be respectful to other people. Like I don't want to presume that other people are comfortable with me being inside of public spaces, um, and and if they know or don't know about, have I been tested or whatever, like, so I'm gonna wear my mask, and I'm going to,
Mhm.
like, I'm just gonna do certain things. I go to, as you know, I go to Africa a lot. I go to Africa probably about twice a year for the past 30 years or so. And so going to Africa, you had to get vaccinated. Like I had to receive a lot of vaccines. I had to get a yellow fever shot and the typhoid shot and the this shot and the that shot. I had to get what's it called, a rabies shot. I had to get tons of shots, right? So yes, I'm fully vaccinated. And if they say that I need to get a booster, I'm going to get a booster. Because I think we're living in a different kind of world. And I think we have to, do the research, but we have to be thoughtful about our fellow human beings, who we share this earth with. The interesting thing is they had me speak for the opening show in Japan about what I thought about where we were as as human beings, and what the show that I directed and choreographed is offering the world. And the main thing that I said was, we are a lot closer than what we might understand. Like, the world is so much more tighter than what we know. Like, what you do affects me, and what I do, it affects you. You might not see it, but it does. It affects it. We affect each other. So we have to be a bit more thoughtful. We don't operate in these vacuum kind of instances.
Right.
And I hope that at some point we start to understand that.
Yeah, I'm noticing a big divide in that. And it's very sad, those who feel that masks and vaccines infringe on a person's freedom, as if the idea that something that you do couldn't adversely affect another person. And watching that disconnect unfold is alarming. Seeing people, some I know, a lot I don't, who really bristle at the idea that someone, quote unquote, making you wear a mask is taking away some of your freedom. You want the freedom to do whatever you want, and if somebody else gets hurt by it, that's on them. Is that the freedom that we're talking about? Because that's what it seems like for some folks. The idea that your choice right now is going to hurt someone. I'm not sure if this comparison is really equal, but when I think about smokers back in the day, when folks were like, yeah, no, you're not smoking in these buildings anymore. And it was a new thing because, when we were growing up, folks were smoking everywhere, airports, restaurants, it didn't matter. Places were smoke filled. And when it was, shown, when the science showed that secondhand smoke is just as deadly as you taking a drag yourself, folks were like, why should I have to stop? You're infringing on my, my rights to do the things. It's like, but this thing that you're doing that you like is also hurting somebody else. Why is that a problem?
Right.
And the argument, the fever in the argument, like, you're just not going to tell me what to do.
Tiffany,
that really unfold it bothers me, because I'm like, how far away are we moving from really having that sense of community, really having that sense of being concerned about your neighbor, being concerned about other human beings, whether you know them or not? You don't have to know them to be concerned. But a lot of folks are just like, I don't know her, what that's on her, that's on him, that's on them.
Tiffany, is it about something that people believe in, or is it about people simply wanting to be divisive and contrary? Like what is it? Like is it like if I all of a sudden became the president and I said nothing's mandatory, will I then have the same people who were squawking about making something mandatory then say well he needs to make the mask mandatory, this is it, like he doesn't know what he's doing? Is it your privilege that's being questioned, or are you simply being divisive, or do you actually have a real problem with 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 finding some sort of community and falling in line? Like, do you really feel like your liberties are being squandered? And then I think about Tiffany, like, and this might be really wrong, but I think about how did law start in this country, and I think about the police force and whatnot, and literally the police officers, they were like the second class citizens who were like, we need pay in order to go find slaves, and so on and so forth, and but the first class citizens, they would not dare step into those shoes. Is it kind of this feeling of like the second class citizenry is telling us, the first class citizenry, what to do, and because of that we disagree? You know what I mean? Like, I can't figure out.
I think I know what you're getting at, and I know what you're saying. Honestly, I think it's D, all of the above, depending on who you're talking to. Some of it could just be, being ornery and obstinate just for the sake of being ornery and obstinate. That just might be a specific person's thing. That's what they do. If it's yes, they're always going to say no. If it's no, they're always going to say yes, just because that's how they get along in the world. For some folks, I think it is the idea of, if you already don't have a lot of control in your life, the idea that somebody's making you do anything is taking more of that, not what little you have control of, away. Sometimes I think it's just, whatever, if you're into a conspiracy theory, you just think there's another thing behind all this. And so you're not trying to get caught up in this thing that you haven't necessarily proven is a thing. And sometimes I think it's just folks are just tired of having to keep doing something else, whatever that something else is. It's like, okay, first you said I had to do this, and now you say I had to do that. I'm just tired of doing. Why don't you make up my mind? I'm tired of doing all these things. First you said it wasn't a thing. Then everybody had to go home. Now everybody home. Now you're trying to figure this out. Then you said it, don't wear a mask because masks aren't good. Then you said everybody should wear a mask. Now everybody wearing a mask. Now you're like, you take it off. Now you're like, oh, put it back on. Would you make up my mind? Some folks are just caught up in, I don't know what's going on, but I'm tired. I don't know what to do, and I'm tired of hearing about it. So I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to take my vitamin D. I'm going to consume my sea moss, and I'm going to go I'm just going to go do that, because I don't know what you're talking about.
And you know what, Tiffany? I don't have a problem.
I think it's all of those things.
I don't have a problem with that. And I mean, I'm sure you know the kind of community of people who I'm around. I'm around those kind of people who the CMOS people. Hell, I'm one of the CMOS people. So of course I've heard that. But I feel like if that's what you believe, and ain't nobody mad at you for believing that. But don't put me in danger. Like, so if you come into my space, you can't go to a party you can't go to a party tonight and then come into my space the next day and act like me asking you to put on a mask or wash your hands or take off your shoes is a big problem. Let me tell you, in Japan, I needed 3 pairs of shoes for rehearsal. 3 pairs. 3 pairs, okay? I needed 1 pair of shoes it was my outdoor shoes. Okay, this was a requirement. This was a requirement, okay? I needed an outdoor pair of shoes. I needed a pair of shoes that were for like walking around the hallways of the building. And then I needed a pair of shoes that were for in studio. Okay. I needed a change of clothes that were only for in studio.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if you come to my house and I tell you to take off your shoes, or if I tell you to put on a mask, or I tell you to wash your hands, let me tell you the tradition in Japan is you walk in someone's home. The first thing you do, you take off your shoes and you immediately go wash your hands.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you do. That's the first thing you always do. That's like tradition. You take off your shoes, you immediately go wash your hands before you say hello, before you do anything. They'll guide you to the bathroom. After you take off your shoes, after you wash your hands, now you can say hello to people. And I feel like in America, it's just not that. It feels
in general, but we have to go to break. But I will say, if you were raised by certain folks, they would tell you, first of all, you're not wearing your outside clothes on the bed. Like there was a little bit of that. We might not have taken our shoes off when we came in the house, but in some places you did. Like in some families, you're not coming in here with that. You're going to leave those in the vestibule. And then you're going to go upstairs, wash your butt, and then come back downstairs and then get dinner or whatever, so we had a version of that, but we're going to talk a little bit more about it in a second. We will return with more conversation as Stage Door rolls on after this. Welcome back. This is Stage Door on the Friday edition of The Source. I'm Tiffany Bacon here with my co-host with the most, Mr. Jeffery Page. We're talking about this new world that we're in and getting along in this new space. If you get upset if someone asks you to put on a mask in their presence, or requires that you put on a mask if you come in their home, or change your shoes, take off your shoes, what have you. And we're talking about, what does this mean as we move forward? We're not that far away from December. I hate to say, I know it's August, right? We are literally like in the middle of August already. Okay. Not that many months left in 2021. Looks like we will approach 2 full years of this in a very short period of time. So at this juncture, we have to get used to some of these changes, i.e., just stock up on masks, or make them, or, what have you. Understand with the various variants, you may need something stronger than a cloth mask. Just, be prepared to do that. Be prepared to wear it. Be prepared to have hand sanitizers. Be prepared to truly and completely adjust how you enter buildings, how you greet people, how you do regular things. It looks like it's not going away anytime soon. So, Jeffrey, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the interesting thing is also in Japan, like the basic cloth mask is kind of laughable, so I had, of course, my little bougie fancy schmancy masks that I bought here in the States, and they was like, no, anytime you interact with us, you need these masks, and they were the disposable
the N95s and the surgical joints.
Yeah, the surgical joints. And so like that was just what it was. I think you're right, Tiffany. I think that we have to totally start to reimagine this world that we're in. And speaking of that, I'm very proud to say that the show opened, and it opened to a full house, and it's still running. And with and I took a little photograph of the audience, and every person in the audience had a mask on. Every person in the audience had a mask on.
Yeah.
And like, people take it seriously. And I feel like, it's a whole Broadway, Tiffany, is turning upside down. Like, people are moving out of New York in droves, Tiffany.
Really?
Like, people are, because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what to do. Like, Broadway is our ideas of the world are just totally different. And I think that we are going to have to start to, we're going to need to reassess the way that we go about the world.
Yeah.
I think that Broadway can open. I think that theaters can open. I think entertainment can open. But I think that we have to be serious about the precautions that we take.
Right.
It was so interesting because I felt so safe in Tokyo, even with the full house, like 3,000 people in the audience, and
wow.
And I felt safe. I felt safe. I felt like people cared about themselves, and therefore they cared about me. So it made me think twice about, like, Jeffrey, do I really want to go out to this bar? Or do I really want, like, because I have other people that I have to be concerned about, right. And I would hate to bring in a situation that would completely turn things upside down. There's another show that I worked on with another theater company right before I left for Japan. They had to close recent shows because there was a COVID scare. And I think that particular theater, they took lots of precautions, but still, you have Americans who are like to be sneaky, and they sit down, they take the mask off, and then if a usher comes up to them, they're gonna cuss the usher out, and that would never happen in Japan. And I'm sorry to keep comparing us to Japan, but that's what I got right now. That's what I got.
Yeah. Well, you are home and you are working on something here in Philly, because right now you're not in Japan, but you're not in Philly either. You in New York. So you will be coming down 95 to see us in the 215 and work on something fabulous with the Philadelphia Theater Company. So as we're talking about this, let's talk about what you're planning to do and what these precautions look like, since we're talking about this whole new world we're living in and how to create art in it.
Yeah, so I'm working on the Choir Boy. I'm working on Choir Boy. It's written by Terrell McCraney. It was done on Broadway maybe a few years ago, I believe. It's a fantastic show. It's a show about it's a show about these young men who are trying to figure out life as they are inside of a boarding school together, and they're trying to figure out what manhood is, and what it's like to be a man, and what it's like to navigate things of gender identity, sexual identity, and racial identity, and all of that other stuff. Fantastic show. And we were supposed to go into production in the next couple of weeks, but because of the Delta variant scare, is pushed back to the beginning of the year, I believe.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
already things are being affected, and that's, something to discuss, for artists, and I think about the gig workers, the folks who work the concert tours. They don't have, if nobody's touring, they're literally not working. All the folks who deal with sets, all the folks who deal with, building the scaffolding to put these sets up for these concerts and things like that. When everything comes to a stop, their whole world literally comes to a stop. And so the idea that there was joy and glee of vaccines and people getting vaccinated and things opening up throughout the summer, with the possibility of it slowing down or coming back to a halt, like, just talk about what that does to you as a creative, knowing that you can plan, but you also have to be prepared that those plans may not happen.
This is an interesting conversation, because it gets into this world of well, you should have a backup and all of that other stuff. And this is an idea that I just disagree with, in terms of like this backup. And for people who can't see me, I'm using air quotes. This idea of backup, I believe that it's necessary for us as human beings to go after our dreams with full fervor, and to not be scared of the downfalls of what could happen if we go after those dreams. And so now we're entering into this space of like, ha ha ha, I told you need a backup. I told you if something happened, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, man, it's difficult for me. I'm a little bit different because I've been in this business for a very long time, and I'm kind. My story is like, I definitely started out as the janitor, and I worked my way up. So I know every piece of the business.
Not the janitor, though.
The janitor, I just scrubbing toilets. So I know every piece of the business. So even if certain things in my world fall apart, I like my my coming up inside of the business has been so well rounded that like I understand what the business is. I understand what a hustle is. I understand what it means to need to, you know, somehow do this or to do that. You know, my life, it ain't been no crystal stair, you know. So
come on now, come on with the poem.
come here,
Come on now with that poem. Come on now.
hey, come on, baby. And so I'm seeing a lot of, like you said, Tiffany, I'm seeing a lot of my very dear friends become very scared about this whole situation and move out of New York. I'm hearing stories of people who have completely given up on their dreams and now they're leaving. This goes from the actors to the producers to managers to agents to designers and so on and so forth. So it's totally flipped upside down. I think that I think that I think that we should be steadfast, and I also think that there are ways for us to reinvigorate our ideas of creativity in this particular instance. And that's what I'm really excited about. Like, what does a new wave of creativity look like? And I know that we're so used to, you know, us all coming together in theater and creating theater in the way that theater that we've always known theater to be created. You know, the theater of Aristotle and the theater of the Greeks and so on and so forth. But there are other ways that we can create theater. I mean, you're working on 2 shows that are outside right now.
Yeah.
You know, there are other ways to create theater that we could really lean towards. So with PTC and Choir Boy, I believe that they're being very, very cautious about the variants and about community health. And I think that they are being thoughtful about what does theater look like in a new age, and in a post-pandemic age. What does theater look like? I think all of us have to start to think about that, like really ask these very, very difficult questions. There's a saying that goes, and I probably said it to you before, Tiffany, but it says, look towards the bandaged place, for that is the place where light enters. Rumi says that, and basically what he's saying is, don't run away from trauma. Like, don't run away from the things that hurt. Actually, run towards the things that hurt and look at them and figure them out. And if you do that, that's where your blessings are going to replenish and be exponential. And so I think in this situation, we need to look towards our trauma, towards our hurt. We need to look towards this, you know, the virus, and figure out, okay, the virus is here. How do we figure it out? How do we work around it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. And you know, I agree with that concept. There are folks who don't know how to do anything with that, though. And so if you are surrounded by folks who don't know how to manage that as a concept, you could be inundated with, you know, negativity, or what would be perceived as negativity if you're trying to just say, hey, you know, I'm gonna walk towards this, I'm gonna figure it out. And you hear a whole lot of, oh, you crazy, this, that, and the other thing, a whole bunch of noise. The trick is how to keep all of that noise out, because that also can weigh you down if you're trying to power through. But all those naysayers, all those voices, especially if they come from people you care about, can be heavy.
Yeah. How I think you're speaking about something really powerful right now. It's about how do you either balance the naysayers especially if those naysayers are people who you love. How do you balance all of that stuff out with your dreams? I think that's a big question. I have no clue.
And not just your dreams, but your purpose. And I think, you know, I know a lot of people who are in this major life transition right now. And in that life transition, there's like a calming, there's a renewed sense of purpose. Like pre-pandemic, folks were just, you know, knocking their head up against the wall, hoping your head don't crack, but hoping something will come through the wall that'll bless you and stop the malarkey from going on in your life. And when the pandemic hit and everybody had to quarantine, sit with themselves, be by themselves, sit still, there was something beautiful started to happen. There was a change of perspective, a more care and concern for the self and the life around you. And yet, as we come into this new space and new opportunities are presenting themselves, there are those folks who are the opposite, who have that strong sense of whatever, but it is the exact opposite of what you're experiencing. And if you feel like you are now more on purpose than you were before the pandemic, it's how do you keep any of the voices that may have caused you some trauma, even if you love these people, even if you love the places, they may have been the orchestrator of your trauma. How do you not relive it and move forward in your new purpose and not repeat those things that dragged you down in the past? I'm gonna let you stew on that for a second. We got to take a break, but we'll be right back with more conversation after this. And welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We are in the final segment of today's edition of Stage Door here on the Friday edition of The Source. My friend and co-host to the show, Mr. Jeffrey page. Hey, Jeffrey. Yes, fan. Yes. Because it's hot. A heat wave is upon us for shizzle.
Look, you see my forehead just beating up with sweat. I'm like,
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, it is hot. That is true. So right before the break, I was talking about how so many people are in this kind of a beautiful space of transition, of stepping out of the grave clothes they've been wearing prior to the pandemic, having a renewed sense of self, a renewed view of life, knowing that all this other stuff is still going on, but just having a little bit more energy, feeling better about themselves and where they can go. But there's those voices, the naysayers, the all of that. We all know that's 3 paragraphs. Says a lot. How do you stay on purpose? How do you stay in your new space and not allow those voices and activities and actions of folks who are not in that space to pull you back into a version of yourself that was not the most helpful or most productive?
Tiffany, I think that's a good question. I have no clue. I have no clue. And I say that because I say that because I am fervently attempting to reach a particular goal. I'm fervently attempting to accomplish something that's inside of my mind, and I'm not really sure if sometimes that that push impedes on other people's goals and dreams and purposes. Uh, I look at people like Osaka and Simone Biles, and I'm inspired by what they have done and what in terms of finding it inside of themselves to say, you know what, this is what I need inside of my body. This is what is going to keep me on purpose. This is what's going to keep me healthy, and I'm going to be very mindful about what's happening. I'm gonna perform check-ins with myself, and I'm gonna make sure that what I'm doing is actually in line with my purpose, with what you're talking about. Admittedly, I've always been the workhorse. I've always been the person who's like, let's get it, let's go, let's go. Ain't nobody got time for your whining and crying and moping. Let's go. You got something to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's because of how I was raised, and like ain't nobody got time to be listening to you complaining and all it and your whining and stuff. I don't know if that's healthy or not, Tiffany. I don't know if that's healthy or not. What I will say is to be mindful is certainly healthy. To be mindful is it means to to check in. Like I journal a lot. So I know a lot about what's happening in my thoughts. Just because I take the time to write out my thoughts. I take the time to like actually write stuff out. So I check in that way. But I think that this particular time has really thrown people for a loop, because spending this much time with yourself and in your own company is probably really scary for most people. For me, it hasn't been super scary. So I don't know how to answer that or how to respond to that any better than than to simply say, take a minute to journal, take a minute to check in, to perform a check-in with yourself and ask yourself, you know, is something about the world reflecting something about me that I like or I dislike? You know, Andre DeShields, what he said for the Tony Awards, and I'm gonna totally mess this up, Tiffany, so forgive me, but I think he said, be around people who light up when they see you in their presence. Be around, surround yourself with people who make you feel like you mean something, like your presence is meaningful. And so I always refer to that, and I always think about, like, what does that mean? And so I try my hardest to stay in alignment with what that is. For me, working in theater is so amazing. Having the conversations that you and I have with different people every week has been such a rewarding experience for me, because I get to listen to how other people are thinking, which has been so inspiring for me. It's inspired my process. Like the amount of times that I have been in conversation here on Stage Door, and then taken the conversations and applied those conversations into my actual work experience in studio. Like it's been numerous times. The things that you've said, here in Stage Door, like in the ways that I kind of have navigated my rehearsal spaces, have been immense. So I'm not really sure how to answer that better than, just, you have to like your own company.
Ain't that something? And I try not to speak for quote unquote everybody, because you can't. But I think you're right. Depending on what was going on in your life, in your mind before the pandemic, that might have been a rough spot for you to actually have to hear yourself. You're not as distracted by the busyness of the day, the running around. You ain't running nowhere unless you're, an essential worker. And then my question for the essential worker is, now there's this other shift that's happening where those folks are exhausted. They need a quarantine. They need to be away from humans for a while, and what does that mean if they don't get a break? I can't take their job. I'm definitely not the one.
They're exhausted. They're exhausted, but they're still considered the lower rung of society, which is extremely unfortunate.
So there's a lot to think about, and this is and certainly not trying to put a whole bunch of gloom and doom on it. While there's a lot of folks who are showing their tail feathers on some selfish stuff, there's also a lot of people really banding together, looking out for one another, being respectful of whatever your choice is, regarding masks or vaccination or, whatever. But, the respect, like, okay, if you don't want to get the vaccine, at least put on a mask. And then some folks like, yeah, you're right. And understanding that.
And if you don't want to put on a mask, maybe don't come to the party, and I'll see you somewhere else.
I'll see you on Zoom.
If that's what you want to do, own what you want to do. Right. I think that what this time has taught me is the importance of really liking yourself. Because this has been a time of some deep self-reflection.
Amen to that. And we're down to like the last 30 seconds of the show. I would say yes, and really understanding, receive, and give grace. Knowing what grace is, receiving it, and understanding how to give it is also very important in this time, because everybody is going through something. Ain't a person that's not going through something right now, whether it's losing people, losing a career, losing their sense of up from down. We're all going through something.
Amen. Amen.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you more, Tiff.
All right. Love you much. Thank you so much for being here. Much love to Miss Kayla J. Thanks to everybody who was at our live broadcast today. The Neighborhood Love Tour rolls on next week. Have a peaceful, positive, and productive day. Brother Shamari is next. Bye-bye.